of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, rank marks, rands, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale? You get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon. Those are the nations of the world today. What do you think the Russians talk about in their councils of state? Karl Marx? They get out their linear programming charts, statistical decision theories, minimax solutions, and compute the price-cost probabilities of their transactions and investments, just like we do. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
I'm going to try to zip through this with as little commentary as I can, because to do otherwise would make it just insufferably too long, because it's a very complex subject. But succinctly, I keep hearing people talk about globalists and the New World Order and so forth. So I thought I'd actually research what that really is, and more importantly, how it works, the mechanics of it. So anyway, here goes. Corporations and financial institutions play a significant role in shaping and influencing the development of world government. As multinational entities, they often have economic and political interests that transcend national borders, and they can use their power and influence to shape global governance in a way that aligns with their goals. Their goals. Not yours, not mine, theirs. Corporations can influence world government by participating in international organizations and forums, and we'll get to that. Many corporations have representatives in bodies such as the World Trade Organization, where they can engage with other stakeholders to help shape their globalist agenda. It all starts with what are called think tanks, which actually game the details of what the globalists want to do. The details. It's kind of like the difference between strategy and tactics, with the think tanks actually planning the minutia of how to pull the whole thing off. And, you know, there's scads of them. The three biggest ones in the United States are the Brookings Institute, the Carnegie Endowment, and the Center for Strategic Studies. The Brookings Institute is the biggest one in the world, though, however. By working with other think tanks, international organizations, and stakeholders, think tanks can foster collaboration and cooperation on global issues. So in other words, they coordinate everything. Think tanks conduct in-depth research on various global issues such as climate change, trade, and security. So they're the ones who go out and get all the scientists on board with what they want to do. Think tanks can provide training and support to policymakers, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders, helping to build the capacity of these groups. Civil society organizations like George Soros's Open Society Foundation. He goes out and causes much shit with everybody. Pardon me. Think tanks can advocate for specific policy solutions and engage with policymakers to promote their ideas. In other words, lobby the government. By participating in international forums and collaborating with other organizations, they can help shape the global agenda and influence policy outcomes. Think tanks can play a role in educating the public, propaganda, about global issues and the importance of global governments. And I wouldn't be a damn bit surprised if they weren't the ones going out trying to blackmail everybody, too, on a lower level. But anyway, that's a think tank, and it's very important. Very important. And just to give you an idea of the scope of all this, there's a bubble chart of all the various things, or most, I guess, of all the various think tanks in the world. The biggest bubble there is the Brookings Institute, the aforementioned Brookings Institute. And, you know, there are scads of others, and they spiderweb out all through the world to give you an idea of how pervasive these things are. Okay, here's a flow chart I made up to kind of illustrate how the process actually works as best as I could deduce. But you start off with banks and corporate money. They fund the think tanks, and then the think tanks go to these forums where everybody goes, and they basically tell all these other people how to do things and what to do. You've got Bilderberg and the World Economic Forum, and, you know, that's where they go. And then the international organizations, governments, media, and industry and finance, they attend these forums, and they basically get their marching orders. I don't imagine it's lockstep. I don't think that they're actually walking around like a bunch of Nazis, even though they are Nazis. But that's basically where they get all their information, and they get their marching orders for the next year. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street especially, if you took all the money those guys control, it would probably be the second or third biggest economy in the world if it were a country. And they have their hooks. They own a little bit of just about every corporation in the world. They own enough to be able to control it. And then, of course, the money goes right back into the think tanks. They fund them. So that's basically how the whole process works. And it's really very simple. It's not hard to understand. Now, there are two forums where all this shit's coordinated. The Bilderberg Forum and the WEF, World Economic Forum. With the Bilderberg being senior, they're like the Papi Chulo of the whole thing. And as you can see around my image over there, that they have their hooks into tons of stuff, from Staples to Xerox to McDonald's to Boeing Aircraft. You name it. I even saw John Kerry's name over there, and the Bushes. So anyway, you know, all my life, for decades, both the left and right media outlets called Bilderberg conspiracy theory and flatly denied that it even existed. And they would laugh at people and mock them. But with the advent of the internet, these citizen journalists, they started actually going to where these things are being held. People started seeing it, and so finally they had to admit the existence of it. Otherwise you wouldn't even know about it. You know, because otherwise it'd be a conspiracy theory. But anyway, Bilderberg, the participants are between 120 and 150 people worldwide, very exclusive, including political leaders, experts from industry, finance, academia, and the media. And by media, I mean, you know, movies too, and music, news. About 2/3 of the participants come from Europe, the rest from North America, 1/3 from politics, government, and the rest from other fields. Then there's the World Economic Forum, run by old Klaus Schwab. And it overlaps with Bilderberg quite a bit, but it's comprised of thousands of members. And I got the distinct impression reading about this that the Bilderberg kind of sets the agenda for the World Economic Forum, sort of. That's the impression I got. I don't know that for sure. But anyway, you can see how this works. These forums, they go to them, and then they find out all what they're supposed to be doing every year. Next will be some of the aforementioned international organizations that I had spoken of which I had spoken. The World Trade Organization and the World Bank. And I'll start with the World Bank. It's pretty simple. They loan money to developing countries, and they provide loans, grants, and technical assistance. But they work like any other bank. Like any other bank with credit cards, they essentially get developing countries and turn them into debt slaves and to control them. So that way they can basically get these countries to do whatever they want. And then there's the World Trade Organization. That's even more insidiously subversive because they basically guarantee free trade through borders, which might sound all well and good and everything, free trade. However, that just allows big corporations to go into other countries and loot the resources of those countries for their own profit while they leave the people of those countries destitute and penniless. You know, that's just the way that works. Free trade is, I don't think it's that good a thing. And it doesn't just happen between countries. I mean, when I was a kid living in Oklahoma, my granddaddy worked in the oil field. My bedroom was a pine board lean-to up against the house. And I could lay at bed at night and watch cars driving by through the knotholes in the boards. And all the while, all around me, billions and billions of dollars were being sucked out of our ground and going off to make the Yankees rich. And we didn't get anything for it. We lived in penury, poverty. So, it doesn't just work between international borders either. But those are basically the international organizations. And like I said, there are just a couple of them there. There are some others too, but I decided not to go through. Let's go into a little more depth with the World Economic Forum here. They have a program called Young Global Leaders, whereby they essentially train young global leaders on how to penetrate the governments and society throughout the world, societies. And I'll give you a rundown on some of the people here who have been through this training program. There are a lot more, but here's some. Dan Crenshaw. I'm sure you might recognize Eye Patch McCain there. Tulsi Gabbard. And, she's kind of hot, but I don't trust her. There's Alexander Soros, George Soros' son, old Zuckerbucks, Megan Rapinoe, the soccer player. There's a Rothschild guy right there. I don't know who he is other than his Rothschild. There's Macron. There's Pete Buttigieg. So you get an idea of the kind of people who go to these forums or this training program, and they're not necessarily people in government. There's a sports figure there who's all out there preaching the globalist trans agenda. Let me play this little video here of Schwab talking to David Gherkin, and to give you an idea what he has to say about it.
What we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And that's true in Argentina too. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I'm with the president.
Now let's listen to what Tulsi Gabbard had to say about the whole thing.
The World Economic Forum. Did you interview somebody recently or say something about that recently?
Yeah, no, it's something that I've been seeing pop up a little bit on social media. People who, so basically, what happened was early. I don't know, maybe in the first or second year that I served in Congress, I found out that my picture and name had been placed on the World Economic Forum's website under this category they have listed as Young Global Leaders. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, they have different people of different political parties and from around the world that are on this website. I was never asked to join, and I was never informed by them that they had put my name and picture on their website. And I honestly didn't know that much about it. But people have said, oh, well, what did you learn by graduating from Klaus Schwab's Young Global Leaders Academy or all this stuff? And it's just, it's unfortunate that there's a lot of, I don't know, false assumptions being made.
Now, I researched this a little bit, and it was a little vague, but basically, this is not something that you just get named to. You have to apply, you have to be nominated, vetted, and you have to go through a training program that lasts years. So, Gabbard is lying. That's the only thing I can figure out, unless I'm wrong, and I certainly looked into it. And that guy, Dr. Drew, grinning and shaking his head. So anyway, I mean, you can't, I'm not going to trust that girl. I hope Trump doesn't pick her for the vice president, but, I don't know. There's Ramaswamy. He was a member of the Young Global Leaders, and he actually sued him to get his name disassociated with him. But still, nonetheless, he wouldn't have gone through all that training unless he was on board with them. Seems to me. Now, the front line is here, folks. The United States. Because even if the globalists are successful in every other nation on earth, they're still failures if they can't secure and subjugate the American people. They have to have the United States. And here's some reasons why, to illustrate. Economic power. The U.S. is the world's largest economy and a major driver of global trade. As a globalist, it is essential to have the U.S. on board to ensure the smooth functioning of the global economic system. Then, this is probably the most important one, military power. The U.S. has the world's most powerful military, which is crucial for maintaining global security and stability. Globalists rely on the U.S. to provide a strong military presence to support their agenda. In essence, they're using our men as gun thugs, corporate gun thugs. Then political influence. The U.S. is a permanent member of the UN Security Council and has significant influence in international organizations. Globalists need the U.S. to support their initiatives and policies. Then soft power. The U.S. has a strong cultural influence around the world, which can be used to promote globalist ideas and values, like transsexualism and, you name it, whatever you can think of. Innovation and technology. The U.S. is a global leader in technology and innovation, which can be leveraged to drive globalist initiatives. And global leadership. The U.S. has historically played a significant role in shaping the global order, and globalists need to use the United States to continue to provide leadership in addressing global challenges. So right here, man, and what's the one thing holding them back? Because they've got Australia and Canada. Hell, they're euthanizing people for not being able to walk upstairs and shit. Well, it's guns. We're armed. I put that Scar 17 up there because that's one of the rifles I have. I mean, I'm too old to really do anything, but there's somebody who would. Somebody would use that if they needed to. So, we're the front lines, people. And then there are other ways people can be controlled, and I'm sure you know what that is there, just from looking at the pictures. Politicians can be blackmailed. They can be set up. You're a well-meaning congressman. You go to Washington. You go out and have a drink, and you wake up the next day, and there's a videotape of you molesting a 10-year-old or murdering somebody, In the Godfather movies, they did that with one senator. They murdered a hooker and filmed him doing it while he was drugged. And it's not just politicians, corporate executives, entertainment celebrities. What they'll do is find somebody who's compromised and who has some talent, some charisma, and then move them up through the system to put them in a position where they can do whatever it is they're told. And all the while, of course, they're leveraged. And I have heard estimates of as high as 70% of the politicians in Washington are leveraged somehow. It's sort of the dark side of the New World Order. But think about it. If you're a psychopath who wants to set up a one-world neo-fascist state, what would you do? Wouldn't you do that? Why not? If you're an evil person, that's what you'd do. Always put yourself in the position of the people doing it, and you can usually figure out what's going on. But anyway, there it is. Like and subscribe if you liked it. And thank you for staying to the end of it. Adios. Bye.